Again, thank you so much for joining today. It was really helpful to actually see the results of that poll and get a sense of kind of where everyone is in their familiarity with Fitwel. It sounds like most of you are somewhat unfamiliar with perhaps who we are or even the nuts and bolts of Fitwel. So that is basically what I'm going to cover today. You're in luck. But again, thank you to Joe. Thank you to Kaitera for inviting me to introduce everyone to Fitwel, which is the world's leading healthy building certification system. As Joe said, I am Brian Ross, head of customer experience, director of customer experience, interchangeable, totally fine. But it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Today, as Joe sort of outlined, I am going to cover a bit of background about what Fitwel is, kind of how it came to be, the development of the standard itself, and then I'm going to speak briefly about what's in the Fitwel standard, along with the motivations and business case driving widespread adoption of Fitwel. I'm also going to touch on the technology powering Fitwel, the Fitwel platform. I'm going to talk about recognition and additional resources that you can take advantage of. And lastly, we're going to leave some time at the end for some Q&A. So a lot to cover today. I promise you I will be fast moving and energetic and try to not speak too fast. But of course, if I skip over anything or you have more questions than I've answered through this rendition, feel free to drop them in the Q&A at the end. But to level set for everyone, at the very beginning, Fitwel is a high impact building certification, and it takes an integrative approach to how design and operations of a building or even a community can improve occupant health and productivity through a certification system. And we have one clear mission, and that is to strive for a future where every asset supports health. But before I speak about the details of Fitwel, I want to share a little bit about the framing around who we are as an organization and how we operate Fitwel. So the development and pilot testing of Fitwel was actually initially led by scientists and practitioners at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, otherwise known as the CDC, which is, of course, the premier public health agency in the world. And it was also piloted and created alongside with the assistance of the Government Services Administration, the GSA. The Center for Active Design actually won the competitive bid to be the sole operator and third-party certifier of Fitwel. And we are actually a leading international not-for-profit organization that working to globally advance this notion of healthy buildings and active design through research and through fostering healthy and engaged communities through that research, through the implementation of these ideas. We at the Center for Active Design are responsible for all operational aspects of Fitwel, including leading its future development, its use within the private and public sectors, and third-party certification. And lastly, you'll see here on the screen this entity called ADAI, A-D-A-I. And this is the business unit actually created and charged with being responsible for promoting and administering the Fitwel certification as it expands across key markets, really scaling the business, continuing to accelerate the healthy building movement. So at the Center for Active Design, at ADAI, we sit really at the nexus of public health research and the real estate industry. And we translate between these two worlds effectively. Fitwel is one of several areas of our work between these two worlds, as I said. And the CDC actually does remain our key research partner and evaluation partner. And we do regularly consult with them about new studies and evidence that emerge so that we can refine the standard to make sure it represents the latest in the public health evidence made available out there. There are several notable characteristics about Fitwel that make us unique, and I'm going to sit here for a little bit and kind of walk you through those. I think if there's one takeaway I ask that you kind of instill from today, it's basically this slide, and I'm going to come back to it at the end. But I think as practitioners out in this space, I think it's important that you sort of know what we say, what makes us different. The first is that we are cost effective. And I don't just mean that the certification fees and discounts for scaling Fitwel across your portfolio are lower than competitors and other certification systems in this space, but also that Fitwel is about incremental change. Many of the strategies within the Fitwel standard are relatively low scale, policy-based, operational-based, not necessarily big dollar spend capital projects or design projects. And those small incremental changes can still have big impact. So it is a cost-effective system. It is also based in research. As I mentioned in the first few slides, the CDC and the GSA, the General Services Administration, led the development and pilot testing. And the scientists and practitioners worked over 5 years to review the global evidence base, translating those into practical design and operational strategies. And most importantly, they weighted those strategies based on the strength of the evidence and the measurable impact on holistic health outcomes. And they started with roughly 3,000, 3,500 studies, and we're now up to over 7,000 peer-reviewed research studies informing the Fitwel standard. And we maintain that research base, again, with the CDC as a partner. And out of that research base, we offer 70 or more operational and design strategies per available product. Another way we're different is that we have no prerequisites. There are no barriers to entry. It is a design your own journey approach, where each project can take advantage of strategies that work to optimize that particular project. For example, a city-based project might score high on walkability and nearby amenities, but may not be close to walking trails or a restorative garden. And that doesn't mean the project will score higher or lower than a suburban business park that has access to views and a vegetable garden, or perhaps like an outdoor fitness field. But it isn't walkable in the suburban context, and it doesn't have, say, any kind of commuter infrastructure. All that is to say is that there are positives and negatives to the surrounding context of both, and we want both to equally pursue Fitwel. Another way we're different is that we're scalable. By using portfolio-wide strategy solutions found across the Fitwel platform, owners and investors can streamline adoption of Fitwel's health promoting design and operation strategies to really optimize a portfolio's impact on occupant health, really while minimizing the work of property level team members. Another way is that it's an integrative approach. We are a diverse team on our side. We represent a lot of different fields, and it is through that conversation, through that synthesis, along with the research base, that we develop our products. And we love the questions that we get from our users. We are constantly informing how to speak about our products, tweaking them based off of all of the industry feedback that we get year after year. We love your questions. We love your feedback. And lastly, and I'm going to really touch on this today, is our tech platform, the Fitwel platform. We have a centralized and interactive online platform where you can register, benchmark, document, and certify your project all online, and continue to measure and make improvements over time, all through that Fitwel platform. So I really want to talk about how we are seeing rising demand for Fitwel. In 2021, we actually fielded a large-scale survey looking at investor sentiment around Fitwel. And what we saw was, unsurprisingly, that COVID-19 was certainly a driver in interest in healthy buildings. But we're also seeing demand coming from lots of different sources for healthy promoting environments where we live, work, study, and play. Importantly, this investor survey represents $5.75 trillion of assets under management. So this was an enormous study looking at what are the real motivations behind the healthy building movement. Like I said, COVID-19 is certainly one, but also tenant satisfaction and just a pure focus on human health. So now we are confident in saying that ignoring health is now widely viewed across the industry as a risk. But we've also been tracking a swell in social and economic factors as well that are really driving the business case for health. And that includes the fact that a vast majority of millennials seek a higher standard of workplace quality. As you can see here, 78%, and 69% will actually trade other benefits, including pay, for health promoting and better workplaces. We're also starting to really see the return on investment of healthy building certifications, particularly on improving net promoter score, along with driving up, in particular, residential rents. And of course, we know that there are premiums to be had through implementing Fitwel and other healthy building certifications. In fact, one recent study by MIT shows that certified healthy buildings have an effective rent premium of 4.4 to 7.7% compared to the non-certified buildings within the same market. And of course, we know that Fitwel scores are positively correlated with tenant satisfaction, which is a huge motivation for the real estate industry. I also just want to say that we also know that health is deeply personal, and prioritizing health can really improve quality of life. Just one stat here I wanted to share because I know my audience. Optimal indoor air quality can lead to an average of 6.3 days of life gain per person. That might sound small, but that is very meaningful in the world of public health through interventions such as indoor air quality. So in summary of this section, the value proposition to implement Fitwel is strong and really becoming more clear. Fitwel leads to market differentiation and tenant satisfaction. It is an obvious way to demonstrate industry leadership. It is a compliance pathway toward ESG and CSR reporting, and it is driving actual change on the ground, improving health outcomes and quality of life. And that's why we're seeing ourselves grow in popularity and the use of Fitwel really grow worldwide. Here is a snapshot of some of our largest users. These are Fitwel champions. They are those who are committed, those companies who are committed to using Fitwel at scale, and along with our other industry advisors who use Fitwel as well. So as you can see, it's quite a diverse group of real estate players, from investors to owners to occupiers to consultants. Now I want to transition a bit and talk a little bit about the Fitwel standard itself. So as I mentioned at the beginning, Fitwel addresses health holistically as an interconnected system. There's not really a single dominant category or an area of focus in Fitwel. The empirical evidence links Fitwel strategies to at least one of these 7 health impact categories. I'm just going to go through them because they're quite important. They're really the foundational cornerstone of the Fitwel standard. And those include community health, reducing morbidity, which is basically the risk of chronic disease and absenteeism in the workplace, instilling feelings of well-being, such as stress, anxiety, and social isolation. And I just want to pause here and share one stat because I think it's really compelling. We know that the leading causes of preventable death in the world are smoking, physical activity, inactivity, and social isolation. And social isolation has actually just recently joined this list, including recent evidence showing that social isolation has a significant impact on morbidity, similar to that of smoking or obesity. So it's really a growing concern, and Fitwel is addressing it. Number 4 is promoting social equity. Number 5 provides healthy food options, also promotes occupant safety, and lastly, increases physical activity. Each strategy within the Fitwel standard is associated with a unique point allocation based on the strength of the science and the demonstrated impact on occupant health. Strategies with stronger multifaceted impacts receive more points. So a takeaway here is that the stronger the evidence base and the stronger the impact, the larger number of points you'll see in our standard. And this weighting system allows for strategies that are linked to impacts under multiple health impact categories to receive more points. And it recognizes those strategies whose health outcomes are supported by the strongest possible evidence base. So we have a suite of products and pathways for our users to leverage and utilize. As you can see here on the left-hand side, you can see that there are many asset types covered here, many different development types. It's our ambition to be able to address health in as many asset types available in the world. We are pursuing that by growing our product suite, For any of our scorecard types, you can choose to certify pre-occupancy, which is our design certification, or post-occupancy, which is our built certification. So you can use Fitwel at all stages of development, from initial design and conceptualization to construction, to occupancy, to renovation. And I want to spend just a few minutes reviewing 2 quick case studies of how Fitwel is implemented in commercial office spaces. I think that's probably the most relevant asset type or typology for this audience. And the first is an existing project, the Concourse by Anthem Inc., insurance company, that is more suburban in context in Virginia. Concourse used our single tenant office building, impacting all occupants of the building. So there are actually 4 workplace scorecards, and I'll quickly call those out. We have single tenant, we have multi-tenant base building, which only addresses the health of the base building occupants, or effectively the building management team. We have the multi-tenant whole building, which is for buildings that have composed of health multi-tenants. And lastly, we have a commercial interior scorecard, which is for commercial interior or commercial tenant projects. So this project is, again, using our single tenant office building, impacting all occupants of the building. And the project similarly achieved LEED and Energy Star. And I want to call that out because we offer in Fitwel what I think the industry calls crosswalks, where we also award credit that in other systems that similarly link to Fitwel really rewarding and building on the momentum that perhaps you've already been devoting to one standard or one certification system, you can kind of pivot over and do Fitwel and not have to duplicate your efforts. Again, this really does help build on that momentum and synthesize the work that's already been going on for other certification systems. As noted here, the certifying of this property at 1 star costs really not much, according to the team that went through the process, comparatively little over the cost of certification. So really, they were able to achieve certification at little cost because they were able to implement a lot of the operational policies and approaches implemented within Fitwel that aren't necessarily capital intensive. And on the right-hand side here, you can see that this project specifically addresses Fitwel's health impact categories to a range of degrees. Reduction in morbidity and absenteeism is the top outcome as a result of their implementing Fitwel. And this is a really narrowed sort of simplified rendition of a longer form case study that is available on our website. I'm going to call back to this later on at the end of the presentation, but we offer several different kinds of case studies to sort of represent the different types of products available within our product suite. The second one I want to call out is actually sort of the inverse. It is the commercial tenant space within an office building. Here we have the Perkins & Will office in Minneapolis, dubbed Studio IDS. And this was also an existing office space that Perkins & Will fit out. They prioritized health through a number of measures, but primarily they were able to achieve a lot of their credit purely through the selection process of where their office would be. Context is so key to health. And here they were able to identify a location in a highly walkable area. It had tons of natural light in sort of the base building. And also, of course, in this highly walkable area, they had access to lots of other amenities within walking distance. They also complemented sort of the fundamentals of the property location with other operational policies. And I'm going to call out here the point of decision signage. Signage takes a large role in the Fitwel standard because there's so much supporting evidence behind promoting behavior change and encouraging different ways of thinking through just cueing people through signage. So they were able to achieve points through that and also just encouraging healthy habits through that signage as well. And as you can see, the outcome here on the right is that one of their highest, or I think their highest scoring element or highest scoring health impact category, is providing healthy food options. And according to the project team, another data point in the cost of implementation is that the estimated total certification cost was $11,000, excluding the certification fees. And the certification fees for Fitwel start at $6,500. You can find that on our website. But effectively, less than $20,000 all in, they were able to certify their office space. And this cost really accounts for the staff time to strategize and also round up the documentation and submit for the project. And I shared both of these examples really to highlight the range of scale Fitwel can be applied in commercial properties and specifically within existing buildings. Now I want to speak a little bit about the actual certification process itself. And here's where I'm going to land on this hopefully interesting point. All of this happens on our Fitwel platform. Here on app.fitwel.org, you're going to register a project, selecting the asset type, the certification pathway, entering key project details like the number of occupants and other essential information. You'll review the corresponding digital scorecard, and you're going to benchmark your project to really identify a potential score and just sort of see where you are in that moment in time. And this is an important place for me to say that this is often where companies may just stop. Benchmarking alone is a useful tool in fact-finding and planning, really helping companies identify areas of improvement, of strength, and in selecting a smaller subset, perhaps, of properties to move on to the actual certification process. I'll come back to this thought in a moment, but benchmarking might be the final journey for now for many users. Assuming you do move on to certification, you'll use the platform exclusively to submit documentation, submit the project overall. This will cue our team to independently review and assess the documentation through a double-blind review process, allowing for one round of additional commentary, revisions, supporting information to be submitted at that middle point. And ultimately, through the platform, certification may be awarded if you're able to achieve the minimal score. Again, all of that happens through the platform. There's no on-site verification. There's no additional third-party review. Let's talk a little bit about the Fitwel platform. I'm gonna give you a little taste, show up some cues, show up some visuals of what the platform looks like, how it functions. Here you sort of see the login page, and also I think of probably more interest, the digital scorecard for a randomized project, just giving you a sense of how this all looks and feels. Here we have the digital scorecard. As I mentioned, the digital scorecard allows you to review all of the requirements and provides you with really a tally of what documentation needs to be submitted. All of the information is contained in here. We do have supplemental resources, but you don't need to go to all of those because it's all contained within the Fitwel platform. Also, the digital scorecard tracks your progress, showing your score as you interact with it, whether you're answering yes, no, or the other available options. And I'll pause again to talk here a little bit about the benchmarking process and the rewards of benchmarking. Benchmarking, again, is a vital step in measuring the current impact of each property's design and operations. Without certifying, you can still use benchmarking to generate a scorecard summary like shown here on the screen. This is essentially an actionable plan to guide future investment. What this scorecard summary provides is a showcase of your achievement in that moment in time, along with areas of improvement. And I think the most notable feature about this scorecard summary is that it can be sorted here under, if you're able to see my cursor, there's this additional total points. We're able, and it's actually shown here on the screen, you're able to sort it by the weighting of the points. This helps you identify what needs to get done or implemented in order to achieve that ideal certification score you want to accomplish. And of course, that also means that it is pointing out the potentially highest impact opportunities for occupants. Again, because the scores are correlated to the highest impact for the actual individual occupants. That kind of gives you a roadmap to prioritize both their health to the maximum and also your score. As I mentioned a few times, I think I know my audience today, so I do want to just pause here for a little bit and share a few details on how Fitwel addresses indoor air quality. So within our building products, there are 3 specific indoor air quality strategies. There's having an indoor air quality policy, which we'll talk about. There's testing and or monitoring. And lastly, which I'm not going to cover today, is the sharing out of the results of those tests in order to build transparency and trust with the occupants themselves. But again, the first is in adopting a policy that dictates overall quality within the building. And here you sort of get a sense of how this is laid out on our Fitwel platform. In order to achieve credit, you'll need to implement as outlined here below. And of course, I know that this is probably not legible to many of you out there. I think the point is not for me to give you all the details today. I just kind of want to give you a lay of the land of all of the supporting evidence, supporting documentation, and the supporting requirements are found both online and in resources I'll call back to at the end of the presentation. But as you can see here, essentially, in order to be awarded credit, you'll need to implement a policy that meets or exceeds the requirements outlined in Fitwel's indoor air quality policy. We also have a few crosswalks listed here. For example, here, you will get credit for achieving the Fitwel viral response module, which is a different product that I'm not going to address today, but was really Fitwel's answer solution to the COVID-19 crisis and continues to be a go-to resource and certification tool for companies that want to ensure viral health within buildings, or BREEAM. So you may be asking, what is the Fitwel indoor air quality policy? Again, totally recognizing, I'm sure none of you can make this out. If you are zooming in and it's super pixelated, I apologize. I will cover the basics here. Really what this is a turnkey policy for companies to leverage in creating their own or simply adopting this as is to improve overall air quality. So we outline management and maintenance through source control, ventilation, housekeeping. We also outline procurement requirements, looking to interior insulation, flooring systems, ceiling systems, composite woods, requiring being conforming to any of these listed testing standards or other certifications. And lastly, we look to how to address indoor air quality through construction and renovation projects. As I mentioned, there's also the testing and or monitoring strategy, awarding credit when a project can demonstrate achieving compliance with our testing parameters. So here you'll see at the bottom section of the screen, again, this is a screenshot from our Fitwel platform. Here you'll see at the bottom that we outline the, excuse me, the testing requirements and how we require that 5 of the 6 outlined elements meet the minimum, or I should say maximum thresholds for particulate matter 2.5, TVOC, carbon dioxide, monoxide, formaldehyde, and relative humidity. And we even outline an alternative compliance option. Alternative compliance is an important notion in Fitwel. In this example, if you're able to not achieve 5, but 3, you'll get partial credit, effectively half credit for achieving even that minimal number. And alternative compliance is really found frequently throughout our products in order to award credit still for positive implementation, while not the strongest possible implementation. And another exciting element of the Fitwel platform is that we are building out this relational data tool. It is allowing companies to evaluate how their projects compete against peer projects. And as a first step, companies now today live on our platform are allowed to see how their account performs against other companies sort of one-to-one. In the future, we will be releasing more data and performance insights to help users gauge their overall asset and company performance. So this is really exciting for us because we're helping to really inform the industry and sort of let them define for themselves where they are and how to compete amongst themselves, of course, and how to know where they rank and stand against their competitors in the overall industry. It's super exciting outcomes for this, we think. We know. You might be wondering, okay, so what is the Fitwel scoring? I've mentioned points numerous times. Here it is. We offer a 1, 2, and 3-star rating. To achieve 1 star, you have to get to 90 points. To achieve 2 stars, it's 105 points, and 3 stars, it's 125 points. So that sort of gives you a sense of how many points need to be achieved in order to really walk away from this process with a plaque and an official certification. Anything less than that is not awarded an official certification, but of course the process we think is still very valuable to our users so that they can kind of, again, gauge where they are and build a plan to address those gaps and ultimately achieve that 1 or more star rating. I mentioned the word plaque. We know projects want to tout their success. Recognition is, of course, a big deal. Once you complete your certification, we want to celebrate with you your achievement. So not only are you allowed the option to order a plaque or a decal display, but our team will work with you to tout your success, celebrate your success, work with you across social media and other media platforms, put you on our project directory, really work with you to celebrate your achievement. I also want to quickly introduce you to our different leadership programs. I shared earlier the slide of our Fitwel champions. They are, again, our largest users who are committed to implement Fitwel across their portfolios. We also offer a Fitwel provider program, and that's especially relevant for the AEC community and property management firms who are committed to helping their clients achieve Fitwel. We also have a partners program. They are similarly aligned to Fitwel's mission, and they typically offer aligned products. And I think of particular interest for everyone joining today, we also offer an individual leadership level, and that is the Fitwel Ambassador Program, which is sort of similar to the Lead Green Associate Program, sort of entry level 101, 201 level familiarity with Fitwel. This is a personal professional credential that is valid for life. So it's, I think, a really important lights just went off. I'm going to try to see if I can cue them back on, but I think you guys can see me, so I'm going to keep going. I think it's a really valuable personal professional credential that you could entertain awarding yourself to better understand Fitwel and, of course, the benefits that come with that. I do want to quickly talk about some of the resources that I've mentioned today. We have recently launched in the last year at Help Center. It's basically an online self-service FAQ at helpcenter.fitwel.org. We offer up, I hope, answers to some of your most pressing questions, whether it's how to get started, what is the cost, what do I do about certain scenarios, really the basics of getting started, but also we offer up a discrete section around strategy support that is offering additional guidance, tips, sample documentation, other resources that can help you sort of wrap your head around some of the trickier, more technical strategies. There's a lot of jargon in the industry, and it is important to us that this certification system be as accessible and universal and globally adoptable as possible. And so this is our big step toward making sure that everyone sort of understands how to accomplish a Fitwel strategy. We also offer up something here and online called the submission workbook. That is really sort of a step-by-step guide to getting started with the project, and sort of outlining the various products that we offer and really how to make decisions around when, how, and where to get started. We also offer practically everything informing the Fitwel standard online at fitwel.org/resources, scorecards, supporting evidence, case studies, other publications that I showed earlier on in the presentation. All of that is made available here for free. And lastly, you can always just email us at info@fitwel.org or through our contact us form on the Fitwel page. I know that we are going to do a Q&A session immediately following this presentation. But if a question comes to mind or springs to mind later today or tomorrow or any point in the future, the best way to get in touch with us is just emailing us at info@fitwel.org. I know we're also going to drop my personal email address in the chat. I'm just reminding myself of that. It's brian@centerforactivedesign.org. I can always steer you to the right direction if you want to answer or rather ask me a question personally. We have lots of ways to get in touch, lots of ways to learn about Fitwel, lots of self-service materials. And of course, we're here to support any remaining lingering questions you may have. Again, I told you I would be coming back to this. If there's one thing you sort of remember about today, it's what makes Fitwel unique. We are cost effective. We are based in, this slide's actually inaccurate. We're now over 7,000 academic research studies. So we are the only healthy building certification system rooted in over 100 years worth of evidence-based public health research. There are no prerequisites or barriers to entry. We are scalable. We offer an integrative approach working with our team and offering all those different resources and getting industry feedback to make sure that we are responding to the needs of the industry. And lastly, it's all handled online on our Fitwel platform. There's no on-site verification and there's no third-party review needed. It all happens on app.fitwel.org. So I am going to wrap it up and invite you all to join us in our Healthy Building movement. I also happen to oversee our ambassador program. It is a program that rewards users with an expedited review timeline, access to all free materials in like one centralized repository or clearinghouse. You also get a badge to use in your online presence. You get invitations to exclusive learning sessions, much like the one I'm joining today. I would be hosting on the opposite end, special sessions for our ambassadors at Fitwel. And of course, you get that lifelong professional credential. So what I wanted to offer today was just an exclusive discount code for Kaitera's membership to leverage 30% off. If anyone out there is interested, it's this code here on screen. You can learn more about the course and the benefits of taking the course. I will say it's quite simple. I know a lot of times these professional credentials are a large commitment, both financially and in time. Just to give you a sense of how we are different with that as well. The course MSRP is $300. Here you'll get 30% off with this code off of that. Also, the course involves downloading a few materials, watching a roughly 1 hour training video, and then sort of poring over those materials as you prepare for a 50-question multiple choice exam that importantly is open book. And we do that because we know that in the real world, we have relatively easy access to answers. The idea behind Fitwel is that we are training you on where to go to find the answers. We don't require that you memorize everything. That's not our ambition. We want you to feel confident and comfortable with knowing how to proceed with Fitwel. And that is the outcome of the Fitwel Ambassador Program, both knowing how to use the products and also how to speak about the products. So with that, I am going to wrap it up. And I'll let Joe invite me into conversation, I guess. And I'm actually going to quickly get up and turn on the lights in the room. I'll be right back.
No problem. Thanks, Brian, for that very informative presentation and also for the generous coupon here or discount code for our audience. I imagine you can still hear me. Oh, there you go. The light's on. Can you remind us how long this code is active for?
Yes, it is valid through August 31st. So we have until the end of August to take advantage.
Great. So for anyone out there listening and you're thinking about this program or Fitwel training, please make use of this before the end of August. And we'll get to some Q&A in a second, but just wanted to reiterate, this was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. So just a reminder to everyone, the recording will be sent out and you can go through that at your own time. Pause, double click into things that you might have missed during the live session. So with that said, we'll get into some Q&A. And I know there are a few questions pouring in here. So the first is one from Bridget. Actually, she asked if there's specific Fitwel training for those in the Latin American region. Is that something you're familiar with, Brian?
We do not offer a specific training for that. The ambassador course at the moment is offered only in English. We are seeing a lot of adoption actually in LATAM, particularly in Brazil. I have noted this and we'll certainly share it with the rest of our sort of marketing department. Bridget, I apologize that we don't offer anything other than the English course at the moment, but I know that because of the growing interest in other regions, we are very much interested and it's highly on our radar that we are going to offer up other things or courses rather in other materials in other languages.
Okay, great. Another question here that came in. I believe you mentioned in one of the previous slides that there's no third-party verification as well as there's no on-site verification. The question is simply, what's the reasoning for no on-site verification?
Sure. Well, it certainly brings the cost down. And so in order to make a product that we want to be adopted for all kinds of asset types, all kinds of industry users from, the glossiest office buildings in downtown markets in the world to, the average business park somewhere in the suburbs in any country, we have to make it an affordable entry point. And we know that on-site verification is a huge driver of cost in these certification systems. The reason we don't require it is because all of the verification is handled digitally. I didn't really get into this, but all of the documentation you're compiling for your projects include either finalized design drawings and plans and official statements and attestations that effectively attest to your design being true to what you submit if you're pursuing the design pathway. And that's reviewed by our team of reviewers and verified through all of the different documents that you submit. Or if there the lights go again, or if you're pursuing the built certification, which is for already occupied properties, you're submitting a lot of photographic evidence. And that is basically to take the form of being on site. So if you're submitting 5 different photographs of an entry plaza for an office property, you're able to show the same viewpoints that someone on site would have, but digitally. So our team can sort of use the orientation that you provide through photographs, through maps, and through other design drawings to simply digitally verify on site.
Great, thank you for that very thorough answer. And everyone, please keep the questions rolling in. We do have a few more minutes bookmarked for Q&A. There's a question here on the Fitwel Ambassador Program. Does it need recertification once you are a Fitwel Ambassador? Does it kind of last forever, or is there a sort of an annual recertification? It
does. Everyone heard right. It is valid in perpetuity. We do not require any re-credentialing. Of course, we encourage all of our ambassadors to sort of stay abreast of updates through the learning sessions, through staying in touch through the newsletters, accessing our different resources. But we do not require any official, re-credentialing of one's Fitwel Ambassador credential.
Great. Cool. Next question. Could you talk a little about the average score of projects? Are most 3-star, 2-star? Do you know the breakdown of what companies are sort of achieving?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. During the pilot phase of the Fitwel creation, sort of led by the CDC and GSA that I mentioned at the very, very beginning, what they saw was actually a bell curve in the scores, which of course is like a signifier in science of like, this is sort of like spot on. What we want to see is the average score sort of falling within that bell curve. And I think that's continued on through to today. So the average score is actually 1 star. I know a lot of people come to us with ambitions of achieving 3 stars. And of course it's possible. We see 3-star projects happen frequently, but really building or designing or achieving that 144 points is the ideal. If you're at that upper echelon, you're doing the absolute most and best that the science and evidence supports. It is hard to achieve that, I think, via lots of different measures: geography, cost, the type and age of the building. There are limiting factors to how high your score can be. That's why we see most scores fall within the 1-star range. I would say, and I think this is an important data point, less than 10% achieve 3 stars. So it's really an exclusive group because, again, you're sort of at the upper echelon of what health can be in terms of buildings.
Great. A question from Paul specifically for the ambassador program again. The question is, do you forward leads or clients that come to you through the Fitwel Ambassador program to a partner or ambassador in the geography or the geographical area that this client comes from?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do not actively do that. However, we offer on our Fitwel website what we call the ambassador directory. And we are aware that often, either on LinkedIn, if someone's researching that way, or through looking at our directory, people can find ambassadors in their local geography. You can search by geography and look at, like, for example, I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. If I wanted to see what ambassadors are available in Charlotte and who they work for, I could look that up and identify those 20 or more ambassadors and reach out to them via other means. We don't offer up, of course, we don't have permission to offer up their contact information, but we present you with the opportunity to investigate them a little bit further if you want to reach out. So we kind of give you a leg up, but don't do all the work for you, I think, is the short answer.
Great. Next question. This person has their finger on the pulse of Fitwel. The question is, I know Fitwel announced a new version is coming. Could you tell us a bit more about what our audience will find in the newest version?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Fitwel standard actually updates every 3 years. So the last significant update was back in 2018, 2019. And now we are staring down the V3 release. So we were and are currently on V2.1. Come this December, we are launching V3. And that is the outcome of a process that I mentioned earlier in this presentation, which is in consultation with our research advisors, with the CDC, and just looking at the global evidence base, we sort of account for what's changed, what's grown, what's new, what's been solidified over the last 3 years. And we go back and update the text, the requirements, and often offer up new strategies and just take the opportunity to align everything and make it cleaner for the user experience. Some new strategies you're going to find in V3 include heat island mitigation across all of our products, community engagement and stakeholder engagement, flood and fire prone zone mitigation. I think roughly 10 to 15 new strategies are going to debut as part of the V3 release.
Great. And a question here specifically, I guess on the IAQ Fitwel's strategy. So this person is an ASHRAE member and local chapter president. Does Fitwel follow the ASHRAE recommended air change rates, et cetera? I know there were some updates that were just released from ASHRAE.
Historically, yes. I'm not quite sure about the most recent updates. The air quality genre of discussion is not my forte. It's not my level of expertise. But I know that in the past we have consulted with and followed ASHRAE's guidance. I think, to the best of my knowledge, yes, but that person is more than welcome to write in and we can kind of give you a full confirmation, or where we are not, provide you with the rationale for that.
Cool. And just for everyone's information, I did drop Brian's email in the chat. So if you do want to reach out directly to Brian, his email is in the chat. Otherwise, info@Fitwel for any other general questions. And I think we have some time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure.
There's one here from Laura around, I guess, a product directory. So are there products that are promoted as contributing to Fitwel certification?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, are there aligned, like, sister products that get credit exclusively? And no, there's not. There's not. We don't require, like, specific, for example, we don't require specific air monitor types or brands. We do just put out the parameters of what needs to be included, the parameters around the height measurements and the frequency, that kind of thing. But we do not get into the specifics of this brand's approved, this is not. We don't do that.
Great. And time for one last question here. does Fitwel communicate? So this is again on the ambassador side. Does Fitwel communicate its ratings changes to all ambassadors regularly on an ongoing quarterly basis? How's that communicated to ambassadors?
Yeah, we do communicate those changes broadly to our entire user base. Thankfully, it doesn't update that frequently. We, like I mentioned, do the 3-year big change cycle, and then from time to time, I would say no more than once annually, we do like sort of an unofficial update offering clarifications or new pathways to the existing standard. Basically, that's expanding the standard, never making it narrower in order to achieve a certain strategy. And we do offer change logs and explainers about what's changed. And those are best accessible either on our help center or in the resources tab of our .org site.
Great. Thanks, Brian. All right. And with that, let's wrap things up here. So just again, thanks to Brian for spending his time with us today. Again, that was a bunch of information in a short time. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. Hopefully everyone walked away with a better understanding of Fitwel certification. I know there were a few of us who weren't too familiar with it. And for those who have stuck around, just want to highlight an upcoming live event that may be of interest to you. So we'll be on the road in September at Greenbuild 2023 in Washington, D.C. So if you're there, feel free to drop by our booth, number 1133, to meet our team, learn more about Kytera and our solutions. And with that said, I want to thank Brian again and everyone for joining us today for today's session. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and hope to see you in our next webinar.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and interest, and stay healthy out there.